My name is Professor Almut McDowell. I work here at Birkbeck, University of London, and I'm co-director for the Centre for Neurodiversity at Work Research.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nancy Doyle. I am working with Almut McDowell on the Centre for Neurodiversity Research at Work. I'm also an occupational psychologist and the founder of a social enterprise called Genius Within CIC. So why did we think, Almut, given how much work we have to do on a regular basis, that we would need to set up an entire research centre for neurodiversity research at work?
Well, Nancy, we clearly weren't busy enough to keep us out of trouble. So there is a really big gap in research, right? Because most of the research that there is on neurodiversity is on children and on teenagers. It's looking how the brain works, it's looking at diagnosis, it's looking at treatment and fixing what people think is broken. But actually, all those teenagers and babies and toddlers, they will all grow up one day and they will be at work, and there's almost no research that looks at a very robust way at neurodiversity research in the context of work. So that's a gap that needs to be filled.
Absolutely, and what we really are hoping to achieve is to really centre neurodiversity research in employment, in management science, in occupational psychology, draw on the things that we already know from those disciplines about how to do equity, diversity, inclusion and belonging, and really centre the neurodivergent employee within that kind of movement and narrative, I think.
Absolutely, and as you said, the psychological perspective is absolutely crucial because we know about how individual minds work, but we also bring the broader understanding of how organizations work, how well-functioning teams work, how tricky it is to facilitate good organizational change. So between us, we bring this really rich knowledge that I dare say we need to really facilitate genuine systemic inclusion and not just tokenistic initiatives.
So important to move past tokenistic initiatives at the moment. And we have such a huge picture of occupational exclusion for neurodivergent adults, you know, autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, dyspraxic, tic disorders. Wherever you go into looking at minority neurotypes, we find, you know, disproportionate amounts of unemployment, increased rates of incarceration and kind of coming out of the school and education system with nothing. So it's really important to look at what works, why it works, what people are doing that doesn't work that we can stop doing, and, you know, how we can transition people into sustainable employment and fruitful careers that play to their strengths.
Absolutely, because we can surmise that there are barriers, because only 1% of corporate managers are neurodivergent, yet they are overrepresented amongst entrepreneurs, which signals to us that they are choosing to opt out. But doesn't that also tell us that there must be a wonderful pool of very entrepreneurial people whose talents we need to harness in the world of work and also in corporate organizations? So it's looking at the gap between what is happening in practice, because people are really starting to embrace that neurodiversity dialogue. A lot of initiatives going on in organizations. But I would then, as a dry, stuffy academic question, where actually is your evidence base that can guide best practice? And that's really our focus. It's doing research that's got actual practical utility for guiding organizational structures, policies, practices, you name it. So understanding the gap between what is currently provided and what is actually needed, so we can see where the overlap is and where there might be a gulf that needs to be bridged.
Absolutely, because until those employment participation figures change, we know that it's not working. So we know that there's more to do. And I think one of our priorities being to work with industry partners and to kind of not hide away thinking about what might or might not work, but actually to go into organisations to work with human resource departments, to work with occupational health, to work with employees and people who are unemployed, people who are transitioning out of education and hoping to come into employment, and kind of identify what at the moment is this gap between what is needed to make full inclusion, systemic inclusion a reality, and what is currently on offer, and where can we tinker and try things out, and then really kind of unpick where the active ingredients were, the differences that make a difference.
Absolutely, and really design inclusion and a diversity perspective into our research, because in whichever work we've done, we included the neurodivergent voice, whether it was the project on the Autism at Work programs or the recent study that we're just finishing on provision in higher education and reasonable adjustments. We've always consulted the neurodiverse voice, and that is so important to us, isn't it? That's also why we set up the centre and the board in the way that we did, right?
Absolutely. So kind of including a wide range of people on our advisory board, I think is really important to me. Diversity in terms of background and class, and people that work in practice, people that work in community grassroots organisations, as well as academics, and a majority neurodivergent team of researchers and advisors, so that we've got that kind of nothing about us without us maxim really built into the work that we're doing. I absolutely love bringing through neurodivergent PhD students,
Yes.
you know, doctoral research that's actually delivered by neurodivergent thinkers who have historically been very excluded in academia or have struggled in academia. I really like the use of the centre to kind of incubate the next generation of research and practitioners.
Absolutely, because that is such an empowering thing to do, but also it has been such a joyful learning experience for me. I genuinely, you know, it has been one of the most enriching experiences of my entire life to work with our neurodiverse PhD students and seeing their work published, you know, for any academic. It's just such a wonderful thing to see.
So something I'm really excited about in the Centre for Neurodiversity Research at Work is the way that we're taking the kind of quite dry academic papers that one has to publish if one wants to sort of change structures, but also translating them into lay language and resources and summaries that we can put on our website, so that people from our community can actually access the research and understand what it's about. Would you concur?
Absolutely, Nancy, could not agree more. So making that real effort to use simple and direct and unambiguous language, to use illustrations wherever we can. So do visit our website. There are plenty of resources there. If you want to engage with us, we're always happy to hear from industry partners, isn't that right?
Absolutely, and we have a newsletter which you can sign up to on the centre website as well, and as we kind of keep going, we'll keep generating that sort of content and really kind of making it as accessible as possible, using as many different kinds of media as possible as well. It's really about getting the work out there, isn't it? Because the main aim of the centre really is to address the kind of moral, social and economic imperatives of creating a neuro-inclusive world.
I don't think I could have said it any better than that, Nancy. Thank you.